guys. Welcome to this week's weekly recap. We're going to go over some of the changes essentially that we've done on the mobile wallet. As many of you have seen, I'm sure we've been working on being consistent on releasing a new beta release weekly. We have fixed pretty much every new release. We've been fixing at least 3, 4, 5 different issues. This week's theme of issues was unreliability testing. So essentially, if you anybody remember using the old mobile wallets, if you tried, there was a bug that if you released a Genesis transaction, if you created a new account while you weren't online, there was no reliability, essentially rebroadcasting to other nodes. So that could just get kind of lost. And then what ultimately would happen is you would create an account, and then you would see that the account would not broadcast. And that was actually a symptom on the desktop wallet as well. If your wallet was not online, it would not rebroadcast. So that's all fixed and done now. I had a lot of really great tests from Phil. He had some, bad internet usage and stuff like that. And he created a couple transactions. And what ended up happening was a trust transaction came in at the same time, and I didn't know that. And then he created a couple transactions, and then that actually opened up a really great can of worms for me. I was able to go in and find a lot of ways that we could improve that. So now what happens whenever you refresh your transaction history, it makes sure that you're up to date with other nodes of your specific history. If you refresh the transactions, anytime you come out of background mode, it double checks to make sure, because right now it's a push-based notification system on the actual lower level protocol. Tritium protocol, other people are pushing transactions to you that may have been made. So, for instance, if you're staking on your desktop wallet, but then you're logged in on your mobile wallet, that stake transaction that was just made needs to be essentially known by your mobile wallet, because think of a SIG chain as like your own personal blockchain, right? When we get to the multidimensional chaining model as well, that's going to still retain, but the multidimensional chain will be chaining in 3 directions, where your SIG chain is chaining in 1 direction. So think of kind of that original Bitcoin architecture being kind of encapsulated in your SIG chain. And then the multidimensional chaining model from there will be building these blocks. So I want to discuss a little bit about that. I want to create, right now, we've got new builds out that we're testing internally. They seem to be working very well. I think we have one more outstanding issue with a very, very large SIG chain. And then a couple, I'm still tracking a couple crash reports and stuff when the wallet comes out of background and stuff. The backend can have some issues. So those really are the only outstanding bugs that I've seen on the mobile wallet. So the mobile wallet's getting really close, which is good. We've had a lot of great testers that have been helping in essentially determining all these different edge cases that we have to account for. So now what happens, when you create a transaction, you have to essentially broadcast at the network, but it creates a local index. And that's one thing that Phil caught when he made those transactions, is there was a few issues that were present where it wasn't getting that trust transaction, and then it also wasn't rebroadcasting. So there was a very basic rebroadcasting system in it on the prior release for release candidate 9, which is the one that you guys are using if you're using the mobile wallet. We're on release candidate 11 now, as far as what we're doing on internal tests. And then as we conclude these internal tests, then we're going to be releasing a new public beta, which I will be publishing as I usually do on Twitter for you guys to continue the testing. So we've just got a couple things with stability testing and a really large SIG chain as far as like 5 to 10,000 transactions. It seems to not be tolerating that well. And then there's one last final set that I'm going to be doing for the final release of the mobile wallet. After we do all these bug fixes, I wanted to just make sure we got all of the bugs clean and clear before we drove forward into adding essentially more complexity to it. So the final mobile wallet build, as I've told you guys, is going to include the constant time lower level database, which that's been completed since late 2020, and it's been kind of just sitting in the Viz branch. Originally anticipated for 6.0, but Now, essentially what we're doing is we're pulling that into the mobile wallet release so that you'll get all of that constant time functionality. It makes a lot of sense for the mobile wallet too, because it's got smaller hash maps. And so we need to be able to, if you notice the syncing time, for instance, on the desktop, you'll see it slowly start to slow down. You'll start, at least for me on a local host, I'll get like 25,000 blocks per second, and then it slowly goes down to like 22,000. So, the old lower level database maintains some level of constant time using the hash maps, but as more hash maps are needed, then you have more disk seeks and more iterations required. So ultimately, what this constant time database really does, okay, is it reduces the number of instructions required to find any key to a factor of 3. I actually got a really good analogy to explain how it works yesterday. If anybody, let's say we have the Encyclopedia Britannica set, okay, and you want to look up something, some specific subject, let's say Geronimo, for instance. So you would know that starts with a G, right? That is part of the principles of a hash map, is the key itself contains the state of to know where to look for the subsection. So think of like the letters of the alphabet kind of being like that, right? Generally speaking, I think there's 29 volumes for an Encyclopedia Britannica. So roughly one letter per volume. So, okay, I want to look up Geronimo. I want to go into the G. I'm going to open up the G Encyclopedia. That's the first disk seek. Okay, that's the first one. That's when you run the modulus on your hash map and you find out what bucket it's in. And then from there, you go into the index of that encyclopedia, and it tells you, okay, Geronimo is listed on page 27 and 57. And then you go and you check page 27 and you see, this is where the data is that I need. And then that gives you another index to tell you where to read the rest of the block. That's essentially how the constant time database works. Okay, and that's how we're able to do it without having to search and traverse. Conventional databases, you'd have to search through a tree of some sorts, which would be kind of a separate index that would tell you, roughly where that specific thing is. But every time you go up a layer of the tree, a binary search tree, then you actually require one more disk seek. Now, on hard drives, disk seeks can be 5 to 10 milliseconds, right? So it really limits your throughput every time you have to seek. It can read, hard drives can read pretty quickly linearly, but once you have to change the position that you're reading from, that's when it starts to get much, much, much slower. So conventional database engines like LevelDB, Google's LevelDB, is a log structured merge trees, which is essentially, it's just a memory binary search tree that merges these trees together. And it's designed for big data, which it works, but when I've tested the lower level database versus the level database side by side, and I'll write 10 million keys, and I'll try to read the very first key. Usually that gets buried, right? And what I saw with the LevelDB, Google's database, big database engine, is it would reduce substantially every time you added more and more keys, because there was more and more data that you'd have to sift through in order to find that location. The lower level database, no matter if you're reading the first key or the 10 millionth key, it was always constant time, 150,000 with F-stream, which is just regular streams. Or if you use memory maps, you get a little bit faster because it manages the page caching. And you actually save yourself one copy, right? One memory copy. If you could just go map, because it just goes right directly into the pages, where if you do F-stream of any sort, you have to copy into the F-stream buffer, and then the F-stream buffer has to copy into the pages. So the constant time database is, the result of it is it's going to essentially, to the user, you might not see a whole lot of difference other than the synchronization is going to be faster, right? As far as reading and writing, all of that. But it'll also save a lot of battery life. That's another thing, because every time you have one of these disk seeks, you're requiring electricity to seek, to read your, at least on a phone, your flash memory, which flash memory syncs faster, but it's still, the more seeks you have, the more operations you have, then essentially the more electricity you're going to consume. So the constant time database is going to be kind of a little Easter egg. I'm going to be dropping in from the 6.0 into the mobile wallet, because it seems practical. It's a good place to test it, to make sure, as we set it towards production. So that's that. And as I said on the previous development updates, that we will be cutting the block size in half as well. So the chain size should reduce by a factor of 2, and your sync time should double. And then with the constant time database, you could even get a tripled sync time. So that will help with low bandwidth situations, help people synchronize with their phones. So if you've been using this new mobile wallet release, you will see a new syncing screen is available. So when your sig chain is syncing and indexing, you'll get a nice loading screen. That was one issue that people were having, is they try to go load in their wallet while their sig chain was still synchronizing, which could take a bit of time, right? Especially when you have a very, very large sig chain. You're essentially downloading another blockchain that you're verifying through the Merkle proofs into the main chain, right? So that's all pretty much, I'd say, pretty close to getting ready to wrap. I'd say we're estimating another couple beta cycles of the mobile wallet, and then we'll be starting the process of releasing that. The desktop wallet, the testing has been going good. They're actually right now working on supporting client mode on the desktop wallet as well. So if you're not staking, you'll be able to actually run a client and save yourself a lot of space. Right now, client mode takes about 1 gigabyte of disk space. I'm hoping to be able to cut that down to 500 to 600 megabytes with the final client mode revisions. And that will also, as I said, double your sync speed because you won't have to download all of that extra data. So I'm doing as much as I can to reduce the actual bandwidth required. I could add some additional compression algorithms, but compression algorithms usually utilize a lot of zero space. That's really important. They essentially, they're compressing a lot of zeros. So if you have, like, let's say, a piece of data with like 10 zeros, and then, the data, you could say, okay, well, I just have to do 1 byte to replace those 10 bytes and just say that there's 10 zeros. And then when you decompress it, you just add those 10 zeros back in. So compression algorithms haven't been very effective on blockchain data from what I've seen, just because it's every byte is utilized to some degree, and there's not really much room for compression. But I will look at different compression algorithms and see if there's any ways that we can compress that further too, because that's going to increase your synchronization speed for mobile wallets. I want to get that as quick and efficient as possible for you guys. So the desktop wallet, we are going through a couple more beta cycles. We've just got off the testnet into basically mainnet. We're releasing some of those new binaries next week. And we're essentially getting really close to being able to start setting some release dates to getting the desktop wallet as your phase 1, and then the desktop wallet hard fork with all of the rest of the 5.1 features is phase 2, and then the mobile wallet is phase 3. That's going to be happening anytime along those, right? So the final essential is going to be the activation of the hard fork, which ideally we would like to have the mobile wallet out after that, because there are going to be some new consensus rules that could be modified. So one of the, I guess, running a mobile wallet on your phone, I guess you could say difficulties, but one of the difficulties of running a node on your phone, for one, is it's never been done before. 2, we're verifying all of these smart contracts and managing all of this state in a way that it's actually a node, right? And so naturally, when you have a hard fork with a node, it's going to have to upgrade. So you'll have to upgrade your mobile wallet when there's a major network upgrade on Nexus, if it's something that is, changing specific rules that the client itself is verifying. So we ideally would like to have the mobile wallet out after we release that 5.1 hard fork, because there's going to be some slight adjustments in the difficulty calculations, which, is verified on the client. If any of you didn't know, the client mode essentially is you're processing blocks, but you just don't have all of the transactions that everyone else has. You're just processing a small subset of your transactions. So yes, that's very good. I've been seeing consistent progress from the team. We're getting new builds out pretty consistently. Kendall and Christo have been completely on it. Haven't been having as much time to work on the new feature build out this last week or two. I've been focusing primarily on the mobile wallet, which had a lot more, tuning that was required, such as, if you guys recall, the proofs was like our last issue, but then I just ran into another issue. If you log into a sig chain that you've already logged into, or if, let's say, I've sent coins from one sig chain to another, and then I try to log into both of those sig chains, you're going to get proof credit already spent issues. So that's been fixed. That was something that we discovered as well. basically changed it to where proofs are managed in your own scope, so that when you download proofs that are relevant to your SIG chain, we had to kind of manage scopes that way. And that was an issue too that went way back. That's actually one reason that I started reworking all the indexing systems in the client mode, because if you tried to log into a SIG chain that you'd already logged into, or you had a register address of, you would get errors. And I ran into this. Okay, this is an architectural issue. It needs to be reassessed, and the indexing really needs to be built. And any of you that use a really large SIG chain too, you'll notice on the old desktop wallet, it can take quite some time to load your transactions history and all of those other things, just by the nature of it not being indexed and having to search for names and all of that. So it's been really cool to kind of come back. It's an augmented full circle where we're back to like the full essentially functionality of the client mode, or I shouldn't say full functionality, but I ran into a similar issue that was run into prior, which is running into two SIG chains, which I went on this long journey of re-indexing everything to fix that. And so when we ran into it in a slightly different way with the credits proof, it took a matter of 10-15 minutes to fix, rather than a year, as we've seen. So that's good. The architecture feels really solid. The people that have been using the mobile wallet have been reporting, at least for this new release candidate 11. Phil says he's been testing it in lots of different places with bad service, good service, sending transactions, trying to receive, and he says that it's been running really reliably. Hasn't had any issues there. There's a battery consumption issue on Android. People have been saying it's just consuming a little bit more battery than they would like. So as the final phase of the mobile wallet, we're going to be really optimizing that. And then over this next week or number of days, I will be, hopefully today and tomorrow, I'm going to be focusing back on the new feature build out, getting our remote login and new APIs set up. And then Keeson was wanting to kind of discuss a little bit too. If he is still on here, I can give you, let's see, if you have a microphone, Keeson. He's been working a lot on the testing suites, right? So there's unit tests and regression tests and a bunch of different things that we use to essentially make sure that the core code is running as it should, that all these specific units of the code are working. So I know he wanted to share some of that. We'll see. I just invited him to listen or to speak. I don't know if you have any microphone, Keeson, if you were planning on it today, but that's what I recall we spoke. But anyway, I can start discussing some of his updates if he isn't ready for it. But anyway, so basically doing regression tests, unit tests. He's been essentially fixing up the unit test framework. Has not been migrated over to a lot of the new API semantics and some of the documentation and some of the error codes. So he's been helping with some of those little minor details, which have been really important, at least for me, because those are nitty gritty things that I haven't had the time to fully go into, and they can take quite a lot of time. And he's, as far as I've seen, done a really good job of getting all of these different unit tests and regression frameworks put together so that you can run each one individually and things such as that. So, let's see. No Keeson. Okay. Anyway, let's see. So that's pretty much where we're at. We're planning on another mobile wallet release and a new desktop wallet release, and then that's going to be starting essentially our release process. Once we have the next desktop wallet beta out, I'm going to discuss with the team. We've already discussed a release date internally. So once we have the desktop wallet out, then we will be posting the release date of when the basically first phase of Tritium++ rollout will be. We've essentially, okay, you can, Keeson. Well, then jump on, man. But essentially, we're pretty much ready. We're pretty much there as far as setting our release dates and getting the desktop wallet out so that you guys can start using all of these new features. And then developers, if you're developing right now, you can already use a lot of the 5.1 suite. There's other use cases that have already been running it for, I think, close to a year as it's been improving. So let's see. I would like to introduce Keeson to you guys. see if he gets his microphone set up. But we're pretty much there. I mean, I wouldn't quite say that we're at the finish line yet, but the bug frequency has reduced a lot. It's basically the first iteration of the public mobile wallet betas. We had a lot of different little idiosyncrasies and use and test cases that needed to be assessed, right? Either edge cases and front end stuff, and I had some back end stuff, but that's all pretty much wrapped up now. Let's see, I'm inviting you to speak again, Keeson, if you got that set up. Okay, well, I invited you to speak, mate. All right. So let me invite co-host. Okay, so we're pretty much there. I'd say on the mobile wallet, I'd feel comfortable with a couple more beta cycles. I think the desktop wallet, we're pretty much there. Maybe 1-2 more beta cycles. We're looking at sometime, like I said, I will post a release date once I confirm with everyone else on the development team. We've already set some internal release dates. I want to just double check with them, so I'll be making a tweet about that when we have it. And then we have essentially another version of the mobile wallet beta that's already running in internal testing right now. We will be publishing that, and that'll be something that we essentially are getting ready for publishing on the Play Store and the App Store after I'd estimate 2 or 3 more beta cycles. I think the desktop wallet, we're pretty much close to our final build right now. We may have, all right, it's not receiving anything. Okay, so we'll probably have Keeson on next week. It seems like that specifically is not working, but expect some new mobile wallet betas. Probably not. I don't know. It seems like the Friday releases have been a little bit of crunch, but it may be sometime later this week or early next week. We're on release candidate 11. The last one you're using is release candidate 9, so we've only had to go through 2 iterations of that core daemon. Currently, we're working with Christo. He's getting the final desktop wallet betas out, and then once we have those new versions out, we're going to be setting a release date for when to expect the desktop wallet. And then by the next weekly recap, I should be pretty much wrapped up with the new feature build out too. So maybe that would be a good opportunity to bring Keeson in and discuss these things. We essentially have, we're pretty much there. I just have probably another day or 2 left on the new feature build out, and then depending on our time of testing, that could be a little bit longer after that. But all the stuff that's in there right now is ready on the desktop wallet. And as I said, there's a desktop wallet supports client mode as well. That's something that Christo's actually working on right now. So that if you don't want to stake and you don't feel like you need to, we should just go. So anyway, we're about ready to go, everybody. And I appreciate everybody's patience and time. And we will catch up.